Hey friends, welcome to another Bible time. This week we're going to study our next story in our Compassion in Scripture series. We're going to look at a story from the book of Exodus, chapter 1, starting a little bit before verse 15, but really focusing in on verses 15 through 21. Now, what do you know about the book of Exodus? What is it about? All right, I know some of you are like, I don't know what's Exodus. And some of you are like, Moses? And some of you are saying a whole lot of other things. You remember so many things from our times together, and it's always impressive to me. But the big thing to remember about the book of Exodus is that Exodus means a going out, right? Like that's the general idea of the word Exodus. And so when we think of that book, we can think about God taking his people out of slavery in Egypt towards the promised land, where he promised them good things and a place to call their own. Now, that's the thing to remember about the book of Exodus. And at the very beginning of the book of Exodus, we see people who are hurting, who are being oppressed, meaning someone is actively hurting them and trying to keep them down in society and make it hard for them. And we get to see two women, Shiphrah and Puah, who had a really hard choice to make. Now, have you ever thought about how to make the right decision, or what is right versus wrong? Have you ever come upon a situation where you don't really know the right answer? Where some of the things you've been taught or some of the things you think are in conflict? For instance, maybe your teacher or someone in authority has told you that a specific behavior is not okay. But maybe that behavior is what helps you calm down. So I know some of you need to move a lot, and some of you like to shake your hands when you're feeling really anxious, or some of you are really sensitive to sound and you need to cover your ears. And a lot of times people don't understand that, and they'll tell you you can't do that. But then what do you do if it's what you need to calm your body down, or to find your happy medium, or to be less anxious? Right and wrong is not always clear. Sometimes we have to disobey someone we love or someone who's in authority in order to do what's right in God's eyes. But it's not always easy to figure out. Today's story is about exactly that. And so let's turn our Bibles to Exodus chapter 1, and let's read together the hard decision that Shiphrah and Puah needed to make. You'll remember, hopefully, that leading up to the book of Exodus, Joseph and his brothers and his family settled in Egypt and were shown great favor by the Pharaoh. And in this way, God saved the people of Israel, the people that he had promised to rescue the world through. He saved them to live for generations and to really thrive in Egypt. But in verse 8 in Exodus chapter 1, we see that a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we are. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of war join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramesses, for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians became ruthless in imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in every kind of field labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks that they imposed on them. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, "When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill them. But if it is a girl, let her live." But the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and allowed the boys to live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. Before we even can get there, they give birth." So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because Shiphrah and Puah had honored God, he gave them families. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Man, that's a hard story. Can you imagine someone in authority like a king saying, "Go and kill all of the baby boys"? That's a really hard and horrible thing. And I'm so glad that Shiphrah and Puah knew that honoring God meant showing compassion on those babies and disobeying the king, even though it put them at risk. And Shiphrah and Puah knew that the people who were most powerless and who they had to care for and show compassion towards were the babies. How do courage and compassion go together? How do they go together in this story? How might they go together in your own life? Now, can you think of a time when breaking the rules was the right decision? This is a hard one for me because I'm a rule follower. I like to be like the good one, the one who makes the right decisions, that the people who are like in charge are like, "Good job, Courtney, you did the right thing." But sometimes we have to break the rules. Can you imagine a scenario, a time when you might be willing to break the rules, to show compassion or to do what you think is right, to do what God is asking you to do? Shiphrah and Puah chose to show compassion to those who didn't have any power, the baby boys that Pharaoh wanted them to kill. Who are some people that you can think of who don't have very much power in our world today? What are some ways that you can show some compassion towards them? And finally, friends, I want you to think about this. What do you think God felt about Shiphrah and Puah's decision? Was he proud? Was God pleased? How do we know? Well, in this story, the person who wrote it down chose to show God's pleasure in their decision by pointing out that Shiphrah and Puah were able to have families of their own. Now, it's not always that cut and dry. We don't always just get babies because we make the right choice, or get wealth because we make the right choice. Sometimes we don't get anything that the world thinks is valuable. But it's still important to show compassion and do the right thing, even if it means breaking the rules, when we really see that God is showing us the right thing to do. And we can figure that out in community. Shiphrah and Puah didn't do it alone. They did it with each other. And I'm so thankful that we have their names in Scripture and their stories in Scripture to celebrate that these women did the right thing. They showed compassion to the powerless, and they modeled for us what we can do in our own lives. Friends, as you continue watching, you'll get to hear our songs for this lesson. There are 2 of them. I hope you enjoy them, and I will see you soon. Love you, friends.
Strangers appear to Sarah and Abraham. Please stay for lunch, we have enough to share with everyone. Hospitality, courage and kindness, grace is what we need. To be compassionate, showing God's love to everyone that we meet. Shifra and Pua weren't afraid of the king. They honored and feared the Lord. And in return, God blessed them both with children they adored. Hospitality, courage and kindness, grace is what we need. To be compassionate, showing God's love to everyone that we meet. David had vowed to honor the Lord. With kindness he showed to all. And so he asked Mephibosheth to dine in the king's hall. And hospitality, courage and kindness, grace is what we need. To be compassionate, showing God's love to everyone that we meet. Soldiers were fighting in a great war. The battle shook up the town. The king set out a feast for them. They laid their weapons down. And hospitality, courage and kindness, grace is what we need. To be compassionate, showing God's love to everyone that we meet. Everyone that we meet. To everyone that we meet. We are the people of God. We are the people of God. We are chosen and beloved. And so we must clothe ourselves with compassion and kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And over all these things,